welcome and welcome back to my channel. This is your girl Sean. I'm back for another video, and welcome back to another review for Insecure. This is season 4, episode 7. I believe this one is called Lowkey Trippin, and this is a Molly-centric episode, which I'm really excited about because I think that we really needed to see, especially after Issa's episode last week, how Molly was coping. Was she thriving? Did she miss Issa? Was she remorseful in the least for showing out at Issa's block party? Anyway, before we get into all of that, if you like reviews like this one, if you like fashion related posts, lifestyle content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And if you're already a subscriber, hit that little bell. That way you'll be notified every single time I upload a video. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the review / recap. So this week's episode picks up where last week's episode left off at the Ethiopian restaurant. Molly is at the counter and she's debating, trying to figure out what she's going to order. Now this is Molly's perspective, which is really good because last time we saw Issa looking through the glass door and seeing Molly, but in this episode we can see that Molly actually saw Issa first. She saw Issa when she pulled up, hopped out, and when she thought Issa was about to walk into the door, Molly decided to turn her head and act like she was busy. So Molly sort of says to herself, here we go. She's like braced for this conversation, a conversation that's long overdue for Issa and Molly, a conversation that Molly has been wanting to have with Issa so many times. And I can actually understand where Molly is coming from with being frustrated with Issa because Issa keeps putting it off. She sees for herself right then and there Issa putting it off. But in Issa's defense, this was the night after the block party. You know, I think one thing that's often overlooked is that Molly argues for a living. She's a lawyer. Molly never backs down from an argument. She never backs down from confrontation. That's who Molly is. That's not Issa though. Issa is non-confrontational. Issa doesn't like to argue. Issa puts herself in these awkward situations because she doesn't speak up for herself. So from the Ethiopian restaurant, Molly returns back to her place and Andrew is there. She has the takeout and she's telling him that she saw Issa. And he was basically thinking like, okay, like what happened? And she was like, you know, she ran from me. So Andrew asks Molly, what are you going to do? And Molly's like, I'm not going to do anything. You know, she's the one who was wrong. And I'm not taking her with me to Mexico. So I don't have anything to worry about. I'm not even worried about it. And so, you know, she's just excited. She's packing for the trip. And then she gets a text message from her job and she's upset because she's like, it looks like I'm gonna have to squeeze in a meeting at work before our trip. So Molly heads into work and she's asking her assistant, like, why wasn't I informed about this meeting? And the assistant tries to come with some excuses and Molly does not want to hear it. Molly was like, look, when you make mistakes, it looks like I make mistakes and you don't get paid to make me look dumb. And it was just, don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing what the assistant did. You know, that mistake definitely, you know, kind of messed up Molly's schedule and all of that, and especially when it makes her look bad. Molly does not play that. She's very cutthroat when it comes to her job, but I do feel like this was one of the instances in this episode where Molly was sort of misplacing her anger that she had towards the Issa situation. So after Molly's meeting, she's running through the airport and she does manage to catch her flight, but just barely. So Andrew's excited they're able to head off to Mexico. But while they're on the plane, you know, there's this woman who's next to them, and that woman is none other than Kim Fields, aka Tootie from The Facts of Life, aka Regine from Living Single. But it's always so good to see these like old school cameos. There's one thing I could say about Issa Rae. She keeps our favorite black actors and actresses working, and that is always a good thing. But anyway, she's over there and she's oversharing, as a lot of people do, and she's letting them know that she is out of a 25-year relationship where a man just sucked 25 years out of her, and this is day 3 of her reclaiming her life and reclaiming her time. And then she eventually gets up and storms off in tears because it's fresh for her. And Molly and Andrew are like, what in the world? Like, why do we have to end up sitting next to this woman? So Andrew and Molly arrive in Mexico and they meet Andrew's brother Victor and his sister-in-law Lydia, and they give Molly a very warm welcome. And the brother is, you know, kind of making fun of Andrew in a lighthearted way, but Molly is loving it. The sister-in-law is kind of weird, you know, she's keep talking about how pretty Molly is, and it's just kind of weird. It's a little bit overly complimentary, but at least it was a warm welcome, and that was good. So prior to arriving in Mexico, Andrew had already warned Molly that his brother Victor loves schedules and loves to plan things, and so, you know, the brother starts letting them know things that he has planned. They're supposed to be having cigars by the pool. They're supposed to have a massage. But Andrew and Molly let Victor and Lydia know that they're a little bit tired from their flight. They're going to take some time to freshen up and change, and they'll meet them a little bit later. So Molly and Andrew are back in their room and, they're pulling out things from their luggage, and Molly's really excited to share with Andrew some of the things that she got that were special for this trip. And Andrew is excited. So to keep everything as clean and as PG as possible, Molly pulls out just a really cute lingerie set. And Andrew tries to look like he's pleasantly surprised, but he was expecting a little bit more, and he starts pulling things out of his bag, which are definitely adult in nature. Now, Insecure is not a family show, but Life Coach Sean is. So that's all you're gonna get out of me today, okay? After all of that, they didn't end up making it out of the room. They weren't able to go to any of the things that the brother had planned for that evening. So the next morning, Andrew and Molly show up with Molly wearing this fantastic yellow off-white little outfit, which is so cute. But they meet the brother and the sister-in-law at this little hike, and they're supposed to be doing 3 miles. They run into the lady from the plane, and she's excited because it is day 4 that she is without her man, and Molly goes zip lining. And I really have been enjoying Molly's relationship with Andrew. At first, I thought it was strictly a physical relationship, but I like that they're both opening up. Andrew taking Molly to meet his brother and sister-in-law is a big sign of Andrew opening up. I know we haven't seen a lot of it on camera, and a lot of us wanted to see if he ever did open up like Molly requested. This is a big step for Andrew too. So after having a great day with Victor and Lydia, Andrew and Molly return back to their hotel room. They've had a really good time. And then Andrew realizes that he's missed several calls from Nathan. So he FaceTimes him. So Nathan pops up on the screen, and he's like, I can't seem to get out of the garage. And you hear Issa in the background. So Molly perks up. And, he tells them you can find it in the closet. And then Molly is just like being her judgmental self. And she was like, people show you who they are. You need to believe them. Issa likes her life messy, so it figures. So then Andrew sits down and he tells Molly, that the reason why Nathan ghosted Issa was because he was going through some mental health issues right at that time. And, Molly was basically like, I didn't know. Of course she didn't know. In Molly's mind, Molly knows best. So she makes these snapshot judgments against people. All she needed to know was that Nathan ghosted Issa. It doesn't matter like why he did it, if there was a reason. That's what Molly does. This is the problem that Issa has with Molly and has told Molly about so many times. And it's the same reason why Molly, at the end of the episode, agreed to go back to therapy. Molly doesn't let things go. If you mess up with Molly, she cancels you for life. Molly sees things in black and white, and she doesn't realize that life is shades of gray. I've never seen Molly try so hard in a relationship than she tries with Andrew. Andrew has Molly apologizing, has Molly used to be very cocky. Now Molly is a bit more humble when she talks to him. I think that Andrew has really changed Molly for the better, because Molly realizes that if you really care about somebody, it's going to take some work. And I think Molly just likes things to be easy, and that's not how relationships work. Some relationships require you to roll up your sleeves and put in a little bit of effort, like the situation with her dad, like the situation with Issa, like the situation sometimes with Andrew. When you are in a relationship, it doesn't matter if it's romantic or platonic, sometimes you have to put in the work. Everything's not always going to be easy, and you can't quit on someone the instant things get hard. I think for the most part, the overall consensus is that the rift between Molly and Issa began in episode 1 of this season. But I actually think it goes back farther than this. It at least goes back as far as last season, when Molly turned Nathan away, and Molly and Issa had that big blow up fight, and Issa was like, why did you do that? And she says, I don't give up on people like you do. I think when Issa didn't take Molly's advice about Nathan, I don't think she ever really got over that. Molly's so used to thinking that she knows what's best for herself, what's best for Issa, that I don't think she really could handle the fact that Issa didn't take her advice. And Issa was so against the advice that Molly gave. And so whenever Issa's still talking with Nathan, Molly's like, she likes her life messy. No, it's not that she likes her life messy. She just didn't take her advice. Same thing happened with the situation with Condola. Molly kept saying, it's going to be a mess. It's going to get messy. It's going to be a mess. It wasn't a mess. It didn't get messy to the very end, but that had nothing to do with Issa. That was between Condola and Lawrence. But Molly she can't take when Issa doesn't take her advice. I think subconsciously or consciously, she has held that against Issa. So it's the next morning, and Molly, Andrew, and Lydia are in the pool, and Lydia's eye gets splashed with water, and she's just like, she needs a towel. So Molly decides that she's gonna, do her a solid. She gets up and she goes over to the towel stand at the resort. And when she's walking up, she sees this white couple just get towels, no problem. So Molly's like, well, I need a towel. And the lady was like, well, I need your room key. And Molly was like, what? Like, you need my room key? Like, I just saw you hand the white couple that just went in front of me their towels without their room key. Why do you suddenly need mine? And the lady's like, look, I'm not trying to rock the boat here. I just need to see your room key. Like, I don't know what you're trying to accuse me of, but I'm going to need your room key if you want a towel. And Molly gets very upset. And that's when Andrew's brother walks by and he's like, hey, you can use my room key. I'm at this room. And then Molly snatches the towel from the lady and then storms off. So Molly gets in the pool, she hands Lydia the towel, and then Andrew can tell that she's visibly, upset by something. And he's like, everything okay? And then she says, the lady, was being racist at the towel stand. And then Andrew's brother, Victor, comes over and he was like, basically like, was it really racist? And Molly was like, yes, I mean, you saw the couple that came in front of me. She didn't ask to see their room key, but as soon as a black woman comes, then all of a sudden she wants to check and make sure I'm supposed to be here. Now you need to know my room key. And, the brother's like, yeah, devil's advocate here. Maybe the lady was just trying to do her job. Listen, Linda, if there's one thing that I cannot stand, if I'm trying to explain to you obvious racism, if you're not black, if you don't get it, just be quiet. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody wants to go back and forth with someone about what is and what isn't racist. If that's how you perceived it, then that's how you perceived it. And it was just irritating watching the brother try to justify Molly's treatment at that towel stand. So then the situation gets really heated, and Andrew and his brother start speaking in another language, and Molly's like, I'm here, so we're gonna speak English here. And so, Andrew was like, that's wrong what you're saying. So then Molly says, you know how you guys are. You only want to be people of color when it's convenient or when it benefits you. I believe that's what she said. And even Andrew was like, hey, I don't feel like that. And then Molly tried to backpedal a little bit and was like, no, I'm not talking about you. And I feel like for Victor, this was just an interesting debate. And he loves a good debate and loves a good verbal sparring session. But he doesn't realize that this is rooted in pain for Molly as a black woman. This is not something that we talk about for fun. This is not something that we trivialize or minimize. And he just didn't realize the gravity of what he was saying and how he was saying it to Molly. This wasn't just some fun topic of discussion. This is her life. This is our life. I think this was a really good scene, and I'm really glad that Insecure put this in here because a lot of people deal with this when they think about the idea of dating outside their race, having to explain why you wear a headscarf, having to explain why you like certain products or why you do certain things. Sometimes it's just too exhausting to have to try to explain to someone subtle nuances of racism, microaggression, gaslighting, and so many other issues that we as Black people face, and that sometimes I feel like only we really see. Sometimes other people don't see what we see because they don't have our experiences and they can't possibly see life through those lenses. That's one of the reasons why so many people struggle with even the idea of dating outside their race, because they just like can't fathom the idea of explaining. Molly walks away feeling hurt but really angry, and she storms off, and Andrew goes off behind her, and they're laying in bed and they're not talking. The warmth that Molly and Andrew have had throughout the trip had disappeared, and it was kind of cold. They were distant, literally, like they were all over each other this whole trip, but when they went to bed that night they were so far apart, and they were both awake but they weren't even saying a word to each other. So when Molly woke up the next morning and Andrew was gone, she really didn't know what to think. So Andrew comes in and he has a smoothie for Molly, and they're talking, and Molly was like, did I mess things up? I really didn't want to ruin this vacation. And Andrew was like, no, my brother and I got up early and we talked about it. I can't let things fester. That is something that Molly struggles with. Molly has let a lot of this stuff fester. So has Issa. And that's the huge problem. That's the lesson that I feel like a lot of us are learning in this season. When there's an issue, you have to talk about it. You can't let days and weeks and months go by. It's kind of like a snowball effect. It starts off very small, But the more it goes on, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden it's an avalanche. You know what I'm saying? And it turns out like the block party, because while you were already mad about one thing and you're biting your tongue about that, something else happens and something else happens, and you're mentally taking note, and you just have this list that the other person has no idea that you have. And so when you blow up, it seems like it's a bigger reaction than the situation calls for. And that's because you should have said something when it was a small thing. But you were adding things to your list that nobody knew about but you. The things that Molly and Issa said to each other were mean and hurtful and cutting, because they were both being passive aggressive, and there was so much hurt there. There was anger there, but there was pain there. Unaddressed pain. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. That's why they haven't begun the healing process in their friendship yet, because they haven't acknowledged how they hurt each other. Issa hurt Molly by blowing off Molly's numerous attempts to talk with Issa. Whether it's, blowing off the self-care Sundays, not coming by for Thanksgiving, not going into the restaurant, like time and time and time again, Issa has been avoiding Molly. And even that time where they went out to eat and Condola was there, and Molly said to Issa, I really need to talk to you about something. And Issa looked at Molly and was telling Condola, we just talking about the same old stuff. How is my problem the same old stuff? Like, that's how Issa hurt Molly. And Molly hurt Issa by choosing what seems to be a new relationship over Issa. And by not helping Issa in her time of need. At least that's how Issa perceived it. We've been dragging Molly for weeks, but the truth is there's plenty of blame to go around. Neither of them is blameless. It's not just about what the other person did. It's also about how you contributed to where you are now. Molly's on the beach and she's making a call to her therapist, which I'm so happy to see that Molly realizes that she needs to go back to therapy. Molly quit on it too soon, but I think she's at a place now in her life where she is humble enough and wants to change enough where the therapy will be effective. It's not just about the therapist. You have to be able to do the work. I say that as a life coach. If a client's not willing to do the work, nothing will change. Molly's finally ready. So the last scene is with Molly and Andrew. They're arriving back in LA. They're in the airport and they see the Kim Fields character over there giving some man some thug passion. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if they needed a break after 25 years, but whatever it was, okay. But anyway, so off in the distance, Molly sees Lawrence and she goes over to him and they have this really awkward type greeting. They don't know whether they should shake hands or hug or whatever. And, eventually they do settle on a hug and Andrew comes over and she introduces him to Lawrence. So the very last scene is Lawrence walking out of the airport and he's on the phone with someone saying, we need to talk. If I could take you to dinner next week, that'd be great. And we see from the preview, he was talking to Miss Issa. It's going to be a Lawrence-centric episode next episode. I think they do this every season where they give Issa a full episode, Molly and Lawrence. All right, that is pretty much it for this recap and review. I do have quite a few questions though. Do you think that Nathan can have a healthy relationship with Issa? Now, the reason why I say that is because I don't know if Nathan has done any of the work, the same work that I'm saying that Molly needs to do. I don't know if Nathan has done. It's not enough that you acknowledge that you have a mental health issue if you're not actually actively doing things about that. You can't expect the person who you're in a relationship with to be your unpaid therapist. And I don't want Issa to feel like she has to fix him. I want him to be working on himself. Are you a member of the Lawrence Hive and you think that Lawrence is the best fit for Issa? And then last but not least, when it comes to the interracial issue and the situation with Molly and Andrew's brother, do you think that Molly was in the wrong? Do you think that it is hard to date outside your race? Have you ever dated outside your race and had to explain what you feel is obvious racism? Are you or would you be in an interracial relationship? Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this week's episode, also some of the questions that I posed there. And yeah, I love you guys. If you like videos like this one, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Hit that little bell. That way you'll be notified every single time I upload a video. And if you like this video, you'll love my last recap. I'll be sure to link it on the screen and also be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till next time, later divas and dudes. Deuces, honey.